Hi, it's Dr. Kate with the Form, Function, and Flow Lab podcast, and today I wanted to talk about a course that I took last week on blood flow. I have done some podcasts on the lymph system, and I work on the lymph system with almost everyone that comes into my office, and even if they don't know that that's what we're doing, because I do breath work with everyone that comes into the office, and I explain all the different benefits of it, but one of the benefits is improving how your lymph system works. And just briefly, your lymph system is really important in the inflammatory process and the level of inflammation in your system. And it's a nice way to easily get that moving without a ton of extra effort. Now, with the blood flow, the blood flow system and the lymph system work closely together. They don't work separately. So if you're going to affect one thing, you're going to affect the other typically. They work in tandem. Now, if you look back at some of our older podcasts, the common theme with the women's health that kept popping up in interviews is about blood flow. So with interviewing Dr. Anna Folkemer, who is one of the creators of Immaculate Dissection, which is another type of continuing ed that I do. She's an acupuncturist and anatomy professor, and she talked about how having proper blood flow is to your abdomen and to your pelvic organs and your uterus and everything is very vital in fertility and in pelvic health. So having proper blood flow to a muscle, like any other muscle or organ, is what helps keep it healthy. It gets nutrients to the area, and it also gets oxygen to the area, which helps things heal. And it makes sense. Before, there was a time when I didn't really think about that, but it does make sense, and it explains a lot of how to make things function properly. You need that. And then when we interviewed Dr. Mercier from the Mercier technique, she does a visceral abdominal massage type of a technique, mobilization technique to help with fertility. And she kept repeating about how blood flow is very important in fertility, and she has had great success with helping people with unexplained fertility issues with her technique that bases a lot around blood flow and improving and restoring that kind of thing to the pelvic organs. So there's that common theme through talking to these specialists in the field. So when this blood flow course came out, I was like, I definitely need to see what this is all about. And Dr. Perry Nicklesten developed it, and I did all his course work for lymph system, and I follow his work, and just really excited to see what he had to say about the blood flow aspect of things. And it was an 8-hour course, and it was very interesting to see. I hadn't really given it that much thought of how altered, like if you're not getting great blood flow in one area, where is it going? So he had us start at the main starting point, which would be your aorta, and that's in your abdomen. And then as it branches out, it's going to, distribute to one half of the body versus the other half. And so right then you're starting in that abdominal pelvic region. And if you have sort of like a restriction, maybe on the right side, and that's restricting how much blood flow goes to that area, what is happening on the other side? the other side would be getting more, which I hadn't given much thought to. So he went over some ways that you can help even that out a little bit, or he didn't really talk much on why there would be those choke points or restrictions, but just in my head, I was kind of thinking, I already do a lot of abdominal mobilization that I learned through dynamic neuromuscular stabilization with patients. Nobody likes that much, but it's really good to help with adhesions that might come from surgery. And that doesn't just have to be women. Women have C-sections and hysterectomies and all those kind of surgeries in their abdomens, but men have, gallbladder removal, hernia surgery, all those things too. So they have, surgical adhesions in their abdomen as well. So it made me think of all the people that I treat there and maybe directing, like, what were those adhesions doing to the blood flow? Because usually I think of it in the sphere of the lymph system, or not being able to, maybe adhering to musculature and that kind of thing. But it makes sense that if you're starving an area of blood and nutrients, it's going to affect the organs and the musculature that it's supposed to be feeding into. One of the pelvic floor courses that I've taken with Kathy Dooley, who's another one of the creators of immaculate dissection, she really hammered home needing proper blood flow to the pelvic floor to have it work the most efficiently. And, she was the first person I felt like that really stressed that in any of the courses that I've taken. And it was interesting. And if you're going around with a spasming pelvic floor, or it's clenched really tight, you're not going to get that rush of blood back in. You need to be able to fully relax a muscle to let the blood flow back in. So if you're Kegling all the time, you're not letting the blood flow back in. And if you're having just some tight, like chronic tightness or spasming in your pelvic floor, you're not letting the blood flow back in. You have to learn to fully relax that muscle to let the blood flow rush back in. So that tied into this, but also if there's a choke point from a prior surgery or a digestive issue or endometriosis or any of those things that's restricting blood flow to the pelvic organs and the pelvic floor, you're going to have issues. So it was just a light bulb moment of, wow, that's probably more important than we give it credit for. So we went over the, finding the pulses in different areas and looking for the quality of the pulse. Does it feel more strong on one side versus the other? Some techniques to stimulate to get more blood flow to get to that area that's restricted. And then I think it would tie in perfectly with the abdominal visceral mobilization that we already do in the office, just directing it in a certain area. And then also, it made me think of my patients that have any abdominal issue, whether it be digestive or reproductive, that have had a lot of radiation or chemo in their abdomen. I have actually quite a few patients that have had those things done, and they all have very similar symptoms. So they didn't necessarily have the same cancer, but they all had radiation in their abdomen, pelvic region, and they have very similar, pretty terrible symptoms. So radiation is pretty brutal on the body, and to slowly try to get better blood flow back to the area, I feel like must be a good thing to help recover that area slowly. And these people have had, years, some have had it more recently, but others have, are 20 plus years out from this. The other patient demographic that I started to think about throughout this course are the people with extremity issues that, we're treating the knee, it's not getting better. What is the missing piece? And maybe, like within this course, so Dr. Nicklesten said, maybe the issue is that you're not getting proper blood flow to the area. So, my people with an ankle issue or a knee issue, doing some abdominal work and some blood flow work might helping with that. And then you can also do it for the upper body. I didn't talk a lot about the upper body, but you can also obviously work on blood flow up and through the chest and through the arms. And don't forget all the blood flow in through, the throat. We've got the carotid, pulse, temporal, and the side of the head, base of the head, and on the back side. But he had a lot of great info, and he gave me a new perspective. Usually as a chiropractor or therapist, you will start with someone lying face down if they have like a low back issue. And it really made me, I'll probably second guess my assessment and maybe start with the front. I always usually work on people's front and abdomen, but I'll do it second. So I might flip-flop that and assess that front, because let's say you just have generally low back pain, if you're not getting proper blood flow to that area, then you're not probably going to heal as well or as quickly. So it just is good to see what you did before, learn something new. Are you going to take what you learned new and change it or alter it, or are you just going to keep doing what you've always done? You can't unknow what you just learned. So are you going to modify and change once you know better? Like, what did they say? Know better, do better. Yeah, that's probably my motto for all, practice and continuing ed. I definitely don't practice like I practiced right out of school, because you're continually learning, and I would hope that when I know better, I do better, instead of just doing the things that we've always done because it's comfortable, because that's when you get stuck and maybe stop progressing, because I think there's always more things to learn and to progress with. But so that is the blood flow. So course that I took. It was very interesting. Dr. Perry did a great job, and I'll be introducing some of those concepts. You probably won't even notice it if you come into the office, but a lot with vibration and working on the front side of the body first. So we'll give it a try, and I love the concept behind it. It makes perfect sense to me. It's just looking at it through a different lens that I haven't before. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I would be happy to answer them.